Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Ma. And today I'm really excited to bring a beloved sister, entrepreneur, just gorgeous woman, Rebecca O'Reilly, to spend some time with us today and talk about legacy and talk about the health of the body, the health of the spirit, and how to use food as medicine. So, Rebecca, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. What a beautiful opportunity to be here and speak with you. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's
Mhm.
really, really great to have you. So I like to give background as to how you and I got here, because you're not just anybody to me. You're someone very special to me. Rebecca and
Mm,
I met in Malta and on the island of Gozo, and we share history beyond this life. And so it's wonderful to be rekindling and dancing together and sharing our heart and our medicine here together again. So
absolutely.
it's a joy and a privilege. And I so admire and love the work that you're doing. So I want to start leaning in a little bit. But before we do, I would love for you to just express and tell people what you do, what's your work, what's happening with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you for explaining our connection, which is it blows me away how, the synchronicity of how we met and how we've traveled together since. It's just very, very special. So I'm a nutritionist and naturopath by training, and really my work is based around helping people to overcome many of the sort of chronic health conditions that we're seeing in the world today, using food as medicine. So that's really my passion, if you like, is teaching people how we can use these amazing gifts from nature every single day in our lives, and not only just to stay well day to day, but to really get in under some of these, more grueling conditions, if you like, that we're seeing in the world, because we're really up against it when it comes to our health at the moment. We're living in a time where literally chronic health conditions are at an all-time high. We've never in history experienced what we're experiencing today, and the whole thing is very, very poorly misunderstood in the sort of more traditional medical system, if you like. So yes, so that's me. Food as medicine. That's
Love
my
that.
passion. Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more with everything that you're saying around the masses and how there is so much that our health is experiencing right now. And I sense that there's many reasons for that, and I know that you operate at many levels as well. And we
Mm.
just know that the environment and the conditions, the spiritual conditions of humanity, um, is at hand, and so the body keeps the score.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly does. Layers and layers and lifetimes of it. But I think what is, what for me, I suppose in my experience of, of using food in this way is so much deeper than just the sort of 3D reality, because when you start eating in alignment with what nature is providing,
Mm.
and you start clearing out the body using food, it opens up. For me, it has literally opened up structures inside of me and helped them to be more exposed. So I find that when I mean, and I still do a lot of cleansing now. It's like our approach to getting well has to combine both cleansing and nourishing. It has to go hand in hand, because we've got to clear out the body, but we've also got to nourish the body. And that process of clearing out the body opens the body up and exposes more of the soul. That's been my experience of it. So every time I do a cleanse, and when I say I do a cleanse doesn't mean that you're abstaining from food and starving yourself. A cleanse means that you're cutting out the things that hinder the liver from doing deeper work. And that's really proteins and fats. Because as soon as you're putting proteins and fats in the body from more dense sources, then the organs have a big job on their hands. If
Mm.
you lighten the load on the body, then you're allowing the liver to do that deeper cleansing work, but you're also deeply nourishing the body at the same time. Because if you think of all the nutrients that are held in fruits and vegetables, for example, and all the phytochemicals and antioxidants, you're giving an abundance of all of that to the body, and the body can use that in order to do its deeper work. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. It brings up a great deal of things for me around the contamination of our food supply
Mm.
and how so much of what we're seeing right now progressively, um, we can talk about it at different levels, but it's interesting. It's really coming through for me to speak about it from its higher level.
Mm.
So like nourishing everything you're saying, yes, all of these things. And why is it like this? So for us to become really aware and awakened to the GMO, like all the things that have contaminated our food.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're living, in terms of talking about contamination, we're living in a highly toxic environment. And when we look at all of these conditions that we're seeing, like whether it's chronic fatigue or Lyme's disease or fibromyalgia or MS, for example, these are all conditions that are based in some form or another toxicity. And there will always be involved in every single one of those conditions, there will always be a pathogen, a virus involved, and
Yeah.
there will always be a concoction of toxic poisons like heavy metals, like herbicides and pesticides, like solvents, petrochemicals, all the things that we're exposed to. And each person has their own strains of viruses that they're carrying,
Mm-hmm.
and their own concoction of toxic chemicals that they're carrying. And the virus will feed off those toxic chemicals. It's a fuel for a virus or a bacteria. So the symptoms that each person expresses is very individual, depending on the concoction that that person is holding. And of course, then you've got the deeper emotional, spiritual, soul level concoction of things. What are we bringing in this lifetime? What are we needing to transmute? What sort of a journey is our soul on? And how is that feeding into what we're experiencing on a more physical level in terms of viruses and toxins? So each person's concoction is very individual, and that's what creates all these very individual symptoms and conditions. But actually, if you boil it down, there's a simplicity to it in terms of what we're seeing: pathogens, toxins, and someone's soul journey. That's quite simple. So if you can see it in that more simple way, I mean, obviously it's complex. Healing is a complex process. And yet there's a simplicity to it if we understand what's beneath it. It means that we have a way in of dealing with it, which,
Yeah.
and one of those ways in is food.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's beautiful. And even the fact that most of us, I don't want to say that we grew up, well, yeah, we grew up with a certain level of consciousness and it keeps growing, right? And there was a lot that was withheld from us as far
Mm-hmm.
as what is proper nutrition. And we were also learning, right? There was meals on the go. I forgot what year it started that like we started to really move out of like healthy from the earth nourishment, and when we started to move into synthetic foods and right that whole anti-life, not full of life, supplements and energetics, that we started to take in that which was not pure and true for us, and our
Mm-hmm.
metabolism, our body started to really try to find its balance. And so I have a question for you that's coming up for me. When you think about virus, do you think about viruses are energies that are attacking the body, or are they actually coming in to try to help restabilize the body?
That's a really, really good question. And, in some ways you could say it's both,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
because my feeling is that there are a lot of there's a lot of darkness in the sense of what's happening in the world. There are viruses being produced, man-made viruses being produced and released into the world. And those viruses that are released into the world can have a very damaging effect on the body. So if we take Epstein-Barr virus, for example, which is
Yeah.
of the herpes family, it's one member of many of the herpes family. Epstein-Barr virus, there's over 60 different varieties, but Epstein-Barr virus in its essence used to be a very docile virus. It wasn't a virus that was, if we look back 100 years, it wasn't a virus that was causing a lot of issues for people's health.
Okay.
Over the last 100 years, as I understand it, the Epstein-Barr virus and other viruses have been manipulated and transformed by man in a lab and released into the environment in very, very damaging ways. So it's almost like that's what we're experiencing. That's what we're seeing. And then these viruses that are, you could say those are the viruses that are sort of attacking the body, because your question was, are they there are they attacking us, or are they there trying to show us something? And it could be both, because why is it that one person gets sick and why is it that another person doesn't get sick? What's going on in that person's soul or spirit that allows that virus in? Is it because they've needed to let that virus in for a particular reason, to learn a certain lesson? Mm-hmm. But then there's also the fact that we're being exposed to these quite disgusting man-made viruses that are having a more damaging effect than potentially they needed to for us to learn our lesson. I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know that there's set answers to this. Mm-hmm. But what I have learned from my own journey with, very much dealing with a viral condition for most of my life, I would say since very early in childhood, my health has been a major, major factor all the way through. And it's been my biggest teacher, I would say, on the one hand. But it's, I don't know, it's hard for me to say whether, how much of that was what I was exposed to that was unnecessary from the world that I'm living in, mm-hmm. And the journey that I've been on with food and supplements and herbs and everything that, the natural world has to bring now in a positive way has helped me learn how to protect my body from some of these viruses that we're being exposed to. Yeah. And, there are ways that we can really use food at a much deeper level, and herbs, plants are here to help, to protect ourselves, and I feel that very, very strongly. I can feel the level of protection, because all these foods have a spirit. Like if we're talking about fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, wild foods, these are foods that are from nature. They are a gift to us from God. Yes. And they hold an intelligence that is beyond the intelligence of our minds. These foods, hold a very special energy that has huge healing potential in the body.
I love that. Yeah, it feels like such a beautiful allyship. Yeah. And such a deep remembering. And remember, yeah. This has been covered from humanity. Yes, it may have been that the consciousness was not ready, but there's a lot of darkness on this planet. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the most natural and most loving thing is to always eat fresh, but we weren't always taught that, right? Because there's industry that profits and benefits from us not honoring ourselves. So this beauty, I mean, that you're sharing and the medicine that's coming through is like really for us to awaken and to return to nature.
Absolutely. It's a remembering. It's a remembering. And even if you look back to the times of Hippocrates, for example, Hippocrates was living in 400 BC type time. These were the foods that Hippocrates was advocating that people eat. These were the foods that they lived on to be well. Fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, wild foods. This is what these people lived on,
And it's what was there. It was
Abs-
like before the science
Absolutely.
project. Yeah.
Absolutely, before the science project. So it's almost like what our bodies have had to adapt
Mm.
to is really gross.
It
It's
is.
really, it's really synthetic. Yeah, which
It,
is why when you start filling your body with all of these beautiful, natural foods, it starts doing something. It starts pulling apart stuff from the inside and clearing you out in a very, very deep way. It's a profound medicine. It's been my profound medicine.
yeah,
You know,
it
it
is.
may,
It is the
yeah,
medicine for all of us being
yeah,
nurtured.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
something really powerful that's also coming up. I can see these like dichotomies coming through. So just like how we started with like the virus, is it
Mm,
coming to help or is it coming to attack? And then there's something that's coming through right now. It's to link to what you said, which is beautiful, that it's like the spirits of these the elements, the spirits of the plants, the spirits of the food, nature that is enlivened, right? That wants to, that is working with us, right? We're not alone. And also, I can really, really sense that when we say like they're coming in to protect us and nurture us, what it really brings in for me is that also that your spirit, my spirit has risen to protect and nurture ourselves in
mhm,
a way that we didn't have the capacity to do that before. So even us reaching and coming into a new relationship with or renewing the relationship with plant with all these allies, it is
mhm.
reaffirming our own God self. It's reaffirming our own protection, care for ourselves, that if we're not paying attention to it,
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
yeah, yeah. That,
So it's
and
like we're
yeah.
growing beside them.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Yeah, that's pretty juicy.
It's pretty juicy. And it also, which I want to lean into with you, it also brings us into accountability and
Mhm.
self-responsibility.
Absolutely. And I mean, when we're talking about food, I mean, there's nothing else actually in the world that can hold us like, and I'm when I say hold us, I mean in a positive way, in a negative way,
Yeah.
like food, because because our emotional body is so caught up with food,
Mhm.
and we can turn that around for it to be in a positive way, or we can be stuck in that in not such a positive way, and that's just a journey. That's a journey that we all have to go on, because the sort of, the um there's so much in it coming right from the minute that we're born, pre-birth,
Yeah.
from the womb. It's like the nurturing, the being fed by the mother. Then you come into the world, you have to learn how to eat. There's a cultural element, there's a social element,
Mhm.
there's an emotional element, like, am I getting my needs met in this world? If I'm not getting my needs met in this world, what do I turn to for safety? Oh, okay, food. I can turn to safety for food.
Yeah.
So we learn all these things from such a young age. And part of the healing journey with food is a process of unraveling all of these things. I mean, it's like our healing journey is a process of deconditioning, right? So food is a part of that deconditioning, but in a profound, profound way, in a much deeper way than people realize, you
I
know?
agree. It's like we take it for granted because it's something we have to do all the time and you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? But it
Absolutely.
looks like you really see like the
Yeah.
full bounty of like, oh, what care can look like.
Yeah. And it's tough, it's not always an easy journey. It's like having to make the right choices. And, when I am not on it and eating in a way that makes my body happy, what it does to my soul, to my spirit, to my mind, the knock-on effect is so huge. And I don't know, maybe everybody has a different medicine slightly in this
Mm.
lifetime. And maybe my deep medicine is food, because that's what I'm also here to teach and to help people with. But my journey with food has had to, I have to be really, really on it, because the effects of not being on it are so profound.
Mm.
you know, what it does to light up every single part of my being when I'm eating in a way and living in a way around food that is coherent. It gives me
Mhm.
this rod of stability like nothing else can.
Yeah,
It's so interesting. And I have tried and tested this in so many different ways, you
I
know.
love that. When I'm
Yeah.
watching you speak into that, it's like, I mean, it really is like bringing consciousness, higher
Mm.
nutrients, right, as higher consciousness to the form. And it's
Yeah.
so dense, but we
Yeah.
are, yeah. So it's like the differential of like bringing our full selves, our emanations of our light in the body. So we really
Mm.
need to support the infrastructure of the body so the
Yeah.
cells can replenish themselves so that all of this light can move through.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the aim, right? It's like how can I clear myself out enough in a deeply nourishing way in order to be able to shine my light into the world?
Yeah.
Like that that for me feels so clear. That's my
Mm.
what's the term the word that I'm looking for? That's my drive. Like that's what sort
It's your
of
dharma.
it's it's my dharma. Yeah.
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 Mm. It's beautiful. It's so rich, right? Like how we nourish ourselves and how we've nourished ourselves and continue to nourish ourselves in ways that don't serve us, but it's the only way we know how to eat, right? So,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
it's big. And
Yeah,
also ancestrally, how our
of
people
course.
have been nourished.
Yeah. And absolutely, or not nourished,
Yes,
how,
exactly.
what was somebody, did I in a previous lifetime live through a time of starvation, for
Yeah.
example? And is that part of why I act a certain way
Yes.
around food in this lifetime? There's so many components to this. But as with everything, I feel like we can keep rising above all of that.
Yeah.
Those are just components of our selves in different timelines that have experienced a certain thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, if I can bring that awareness into this picture, then how can I keep rising above it and keep choosing differently? Because every time I choose the same, I'm not moving forward,
I
you
love
know?
that. I think that's such a key point is choosing, right? Making
Mm.
the decisions.
Yeah,
It changes so much because then
yeah,
we're willing to stand for ourselves. And
yeah,
sometimes we're not ready or we fall off the wagon and like that's lessons in a lot of self-love and compassion and discipline.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm always in awe of you with, those bananas.
Well, I mean, when I did the banana cleanse, it was like the downloads I got that week.
Yeah.
It does something. It
Yeah.
changes something. It's really, really profound. I
And do
mean,
you find that I have found it to be really confusing, right? Because there's so much science now. There's so
yeah,
many holistic practitioners. There's
yeah,
so many new thoughts, new ideas,
yeah,
downloads, and thoughts about like what is good now, which oil to cook with today, which butter is safe, like all of these things. It can become really, really confusing, which I believe it's intended to do that so that people are not really like able to stand in the truth and be learned like
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a darkness attached to that in
yeah.
the confusion. But I think for me, Jackie, finding medical mediums work, finding Anthony William was the channel through all of that, because I spent
Right.
years and years and years searching for answers, years trying to sort out my health. And even though I was studying naturopathy and nutrition and natural medicine and all of these things, it wasn't it wasn't coming together in a way that felt completely coherent for me. And when I came across Anthony's work, as soon as I took some time to really, really go deep with that work on my own, in my own space,
Yeah.
things started to shift with my health
Mm,
in a much more profound way. And
amazing.
there's there that information, for me, that information makes my cells dance, because it feels like it's truth. It
Yeah.
feels like it's being channeled from a higher place, and it's cutting through all the bullshit
Mm.
that we're being exposed to. I don't, for the average person who is suffering with their health, with a chronic condition, it is a minefield out there.
Yeah.
But I do, for me, Anthony's work has really cut through that. That's
Mm.
where this information has come from. This is how, I, of course, Anthony is just one teacher. You've been a huge teacher. Anthony's been a huge teacher. Like, there's people in my life who've served as being big teachers. And you, as I'm sure you're aware, each person is also just a human being, right? So it's, but but I don't know, there's a truth that some people channel into this world that you can feel as a vibration and a frequency.
Yes.
And for me, Anthony's work around food holds that, because it brings us, it has brought me back into a remembering. It has brought
Yeah.
me back into a deep remembering of what it's meant to be, to
I love
heal through
hearing all
food.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful. So much medicine in that. Wait, are you frozen? Wow. Are you there?
I'm here.
Wow. The internet just got unstable.
It did.
I am honoring your time. I know you only have about 5 minutes left with us. Um, so incredible. And I love that and trust that the new ways that are emerging, or which some of them are not new at all, right?
Mm.
It's just knowing what you need, listening
Mm.
to what you need. So I love it. Feels like a balance of like listening intuitively
Mhm.
for what your body's actually really needing
Mm.
and the knowledge, right? It's like you can be very intuitive, but if you don't have a teacher, sometimes things don't work out so well, right? So to
Absolutely.
hold the balance of
Yeah.
both to empower you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And I love that. That is so, that really brings it all together. That you've got to have the knowledge, but it's got to be, it's got to be the right knowledge.
yeah,
Otherwise you're sunk again. Otherwise you're in
yeah,
another loop, you
yeah,
know?
totally.
So the right knowledge will help you open up your intuition around
Mhm.
this.
Yes. And it's really beautiful to see that obviously, just like with me and you, just like you and Anthony, at a higher consciousness level, your soul brought you to Anthony. You
It,
wouldn't have even been
it,
exposed to him, to see the books, to see, right?
100%.
Your consciousness pulls in what it needs. Boop,
Of
I need this
course.
person right now. I need this right now.
Of course. Yeah.
And really walking that line of discernment of like, yep, this is true, nope, this is
Yeah.
not, and listening to that so that you can step into
Exactly.
it. Yeah. It's so gorgeous.
Mm.
And I will say too that with food it's tricky because we might have a craving we think it's our intuition, our body's really craving, I'll say pasta for me, right? But we know that it's true. Pasta will generate strength for me. It will. It is a nourishment that I receive from my family lineage. It may soothe my nervous system, all the things. And also, it may have a harmful effect with gluten.
Mm.
So,
Totally. And cravings is a whole other
oh,
conversation. I mean, we could have that as a whole
we
topic,
could do a part
because there's
two
so much that
of
I could say.
entities
you know.
and I mean, yeah, and feeding. Yes, yes. Agreed, agreed. Tell everybody how I'll put in the link below, but you run group programs and are you working privately? Tell us a little bit about how you're working.
Yeah, so I work on a one-to-one basis. I run several programs that I run on a one-to-one basis, and then I also run cleanses, group cleanses. So I run the 21-day process in the spring and the autumn, which is a really beautiful
Yeah.
way of immersing yourself in this work and really getting to know it. So I'm teaching a lot of very deep medicinal protocols on those cleanses, based around the medical medium work.
Okay.
And so it's a great way for people to get up and running with that work and to really experience it for themselves, but within the setting of a group. And
Okay.
then, of course, one-to-one when people have more serious conditions. So people can find me on my website, which is rebecca-o'reilly.com.
Great, great,
Yeah.
great, great. Oh, honey, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I just want to
Thank
tie
you
this
for
into
the opportunity.
legacy in the next 2 minutes, that it is so empowering and so important. The true legacy is alignment with nature and coming
Mm,
home to that. And so, us even, you know, learning all the sacred work that you're bringing, it's like really revolutionary at some level because the masses are really, really quite happy to feed us fake food, fake
totally.
internet. I mean, like there's a lot of beauty and there's a lot of darkness. So just being able to honor that for all of the women and men all over the world who are learning how to eat, learning how to nurture themselves, learning how to digest life, learning how to do
Mm,
all of this, it is setting up an entire all the generations that follow
yeah.
with new habits, new ways of loving yourself, new ways of nurturing. It's beautiful to look at it that way, that your work is impacting that. Right. So
Mm,
women or mothers that are working with you with food, or fathers, right, are going to implement that into their own homes. And then their daughters
absolutely.
and sons are going to be strengthened in vitality.
Exactly. So it moves out into the community in this way. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I love work. I love working with both men and women, but in particular with women, because they are often the people who are creating the
Yeah.
food in the home. So the impact that it has when women are learning about this way of eating and healing, the impacts on their children and their partners and their communities is huge. It's huge. Yeah.
It's really, really beautiful. Thank you so much for your gifts.
Thank you for the opportunity to
You're
speak.
welcome,
Yeah.
honey. All right, everyone, we want to thank you. We're going to let Rebecca go, sending big hugs to the audience. And thank you so much for being with us. And we'll have you on again and talk more. We'll lean into that topic. And yeah, I mean, there's so much here,
So
but
much here.
I'm glad
Yeah.
we got to nourish and taste a little bit of it today.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. Ciao for now, everybody.